Hello and welcome to SweetSpot DFS. This is your DFS review video for the 2021 Northern Trust, where Tony Finau is your winner. This marks his second PGA Tour victory, and I think we can finally put to rest the Puerto Rican curse. If you weren't aware of it, Tony Finau's only victory prior to this one was from the Puerto Rico Open, which has a long-lasting quote-unquote curse that goes along with it. Now, Victor Hovland broke this curse earlier this year by winning the Mayakoba Classic, but some people weren't sure because that wasn't on American soil. Well, Tony Finau has won on American soil. We can lay that curse to rest, finally. If you want to check what I'm going to cover in this video, I have timestamps in the description below. You can also find them on YouTube's progress bar. Just hover over them and you can get to whatever part of the video you'd like. We're going to make this one a little quicker than usual, and I do mean that because this tournament ended on a Monday, and I have a lot of work to do to get the preview out for the BMW Championship, so we're going to be working pretty hard and trying to get this one out fast. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this thing. We're here on the DK page, which does give us the finishing position, rounds 1 through 4, just so you can see their scores, that kind of thing. Tony Finau wins this one in a playoff against Cameron Smith. They tied. And if it wasn't for an out of bounds, I shouldn't say if it wasn't, but Cameron Smith hit it out of bounds on the first playoff hole, essentially just sealing the victory for Tony Finau. It's awesome. I mean, a lot of us are huge fans of Tony Finau. His $8,200 price tag made him very attractive to play in DraftKings this week. He wasn't one of my main picks, but I did play enough of him to do pretty decent on DraftKings. I didn't make my money back, but it still was a success. And I had a lot of good sweats too. Like I could have won a lot of money, so it was good. Cameron Smith, I'll tell you one thing about Cameron Smith. Tony Finau was impressive, don't get me wrong. But Cameron Smith's ball control during this tournament was unworldly. Jon Rahm really had this tournament in his pocket. He looked unstoppable. The one difference between Rahm and Smith, I know I kind of jumped around to players, but Cameron Smith was working the golf ball both directions. Jon Rahm was really only hitting a cut. He did hit some draws into holes, but his draws were not in control. They hit their mark more often than not, but didn't get him as close as his fades were. Like when Rahm hit his fade into a hole, he was within like 5-10 feet. It was insane how accurate he was this week. However, on Sunday during some of his drives, it wasn't cutting enough. Put him in some tricky spots on the left-hand side of the rough of the hole, whatever you want to call it. Cameron Smith, now I get it. He did go OB on his playoff hole, but prior to that, he was working the ball both directions, all 4 rounds, very nicely. Cameron Smith, I was saying this to a follower, he has an elite game. He just doesn't have elite distance. I don't know if that's really going to be a huge factor for him going forward because of how great, I mean, and his short game is remarkable. Like, great putting stroke, great chipping stroke. There's like really very little flaws with either of those two things. And when he's shaping shots and they're going where he needs them to go, he looks unstoppable. 4 rounds in the 60s, just like Tony Finau. Finau obviously shot a 65 on Sunday. Smith shot a 67. So Tony Finau won this tournament. Cameron Smith didn't lose it. I almost would say Jon Rahm lost it, but he also played really good golf. Just chose to have his worst round on a Sunday, which doesn't look good. Outside of that, I'm not going to cover everybody inside the top 10. Let me just go ahead and open this back up because I didn't realize I was blocking people out. There we go. Now we have everybody. A lot of $6,000 golfers. Keith Mitchell, Eric Van Rooyen, Tom Hoagie, Alex Noren. I think we have another 6K, don't we? No, we don't. Not inside the top 10 at least. So yeah. We'll get into further into the salary stuff because obviously we talked about it in our preview video, but let's move on to the next piece of information I want to cover. And that's going to be the SweetSpot Score. So this is based off a ranking, and you can see how the golfers did based off those ranks. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have the top 4 golfers in this tournament. But we have a lot of missed cuts, a lot of, 40 to 60, 20 to 40. We don't have any 20, 40, 40 to 60. Yeah, it doesn't look good. I have 3 optimal lineup golfers, or 3 golfers in the optimal lineup: Rahm, Cameron Smith, and Tony Finau. But outside of that, Corey Connors, 8th place. That's not terrible. And that's it. I mean, this isn't what we want to see when it comes to the scoring model. But when you look at the golfers, it all makes sense. They're really good golfers. Victor Hovland broke his putter Sunday and was putting with a wedge. So that probably had something to do with his 77 in round 4. I mean, he did make an 8 on a par 5, which obviously never helps. And that wasn't to do with his putter. That had a lot to do with him just hitting it wayward. Yeah, something weird with him on that day. It was interesting. Dustin Johnson, I had a feeling he was not on top of his game. And he looked really, I don't know what you want to call it, lethargic. Like I could be mistaking it from just typical Dustin body language, but I mean, he just was not, he wasn't on top of his game. Colin Morikawa, for whatever reason, was crooked in round 1. And I get it, it's golf. You can't be a machine all the time, as we expect Morikawa to be. But the fact on I shouldn't say Sunday, but Thursday's round of golf was just putrid. It was not good. Not good at all. I'm not going to talk about the rest of these guys. You can see what they look like with their ranks. I do want to cover kind of, like past results and target score, because I did talk about that. Obviously, we played Liberty National in 2019. We also played it in 2013. 11 under is what I had. Well, 11 under was in 2013. 2019 was 16 under. I had forecasted somewhere between 15 to 18. Tony Finau and Cameron Smith were at 20. I mean, Jon Rahm was at 20 under at one point in time as well. So 20 under was really, obtainable by more than, usually what I like to go with is looking at like position 2 to 5 just to see what the score is there, because that kind of gives you a good idea. But we had 3 golfers, flirting with 20 under. So 20 under was the target score that we should have been thinking about. The one thing we really couldn't forecast is a Monday finish. They didn't play Sunday because of a tropical storm that went through. And that softened the course, made scoring conditions a little easier than they would have been Sunday, because Sunday it was looking very windy. Obviously, it ended up being with the tropical storm. Thursday seemed like it should have been kind of a quieter wind day, but like Jon Rahm and Justin Thomas went out there and shot really well on probably the most difficult round that there was, because the next day, so like round 1 had like 12 to 15 miles an hour. Round 2 had somewhere between 8 to 10 or 8 to 12, something like that. Round 3 really didn't have much wind. And I mean, it was supposed to have more than rounds 2 and earlier in the week than round 1, but it kind of just stayed around like 8 to 12 miles an hour. It wasn't terrible. It didn't really change much from round 2. So I think that's why we saw better scoring conditions. Just very little wind for the most part. Thursday, like I said, I thought there was a lot of wind. But yeah, outside of that, scoring conditions much easier than I anticipated. If you were following me on Prize Picks, Thursday's round wasn't very good. But throughout the week, if you followed the strategy that I did provide, you were out ahead, because I ended up being ahead following the same strategy that I did. So it was a good week on Prize Picks for me. Hopefully you guys were able to tail that same strategy. If we go to the next piece, why don't we just go ahead? So we did Sweet Spot rank, went through the position, target score, that kind of stuff. You know what I'm going to do? Let's talk about my favorite picks. So when it comes to my favorite picks, that would be the ones in red. Let's go salary from top to bottom. So I gave you 3 golfers from each price range that were my favorite picks. And really what I want to see somewhere down the road, well, I should say all 6 of mine, but I do want to see 6 golfers in the optimal lineup in here. That would be amazing. That's what I'm striving for. To get all 6 of the optimal lineup golfers in there. And we had 2 this week. Cam Smith and Jon Rahm. And we'll get to those optimal lineup golfers in the next segment when we kind of compare the GPP that I entered, the highest entry fee GPP versus the optimal lineup. But we had 2 in my favorite golfers. So if you tailed my favorite picks, I think you were okay. I think you did okay, especially if you anchored some of your lineups around these guys. So the 10K range, I had Rahm, Spieth, Morikawa. Spieth looked good after round 1, and then it just went downhill. I'd be very cautious playing him in the future. His ball striking is all over the place. But Rahm, he was in the optimal lineup, the most expensive guy on the slate. That didn't deter me from playing him. He's the best golfer in the world, and for good reason. Jordan Spieth, 73rd place does not look good, and yeah, I guess I really have nothing else to say about that. Morikawa was probably the biggest disappointment in my eyes. I just thought he was kind of an automatic pick, but yeah, not good. But we did have 1 from this range, and that's kind of also what I'm looking for, since there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I guess the consolation is getting 1 optimal lineup golfer from here, or 1 top 10, so that's okay. The next one was interesting. So Justin Thomas isn't in the optimal lineup, but he is in the realistic optimal lineup, and again, we'll talk about that later. But he finished 4th, so in the 9K range, I thought I did pretty decent. Unfortunate for Scheffler and Berger. That was kind of a disappointment. The 8K range, I did pick Patrick Reed. I did not switch out any of my lineups of Patrick Reed since I live in Central Standard Time. I also don't get up super early, so this tournament started way before I even woke up. I was not able to make the updates, make the changes. Probably should look into that. If you weren't aware, Patrick Reed has double pneumonia, which is kind of serious. His wife had said that he's going to skip out on the BMW, so I don't know what that's going to do for his ranking going into the Tour Championship. I bet he can still make it, depending on who does finish well at that tournament. But either way, probably look for Patrick Reed to be shut down the rest of the playoffs. Cam Smith, boom. We got 2nd place. We got another optimal lineup golfer. And Corey Connors, 8th place. That was pretty good. When it comes to 7th place, we got another 10 or top 10 in Kevin Na. So that was great. Kokrak, kind of disappointed. And I kind of drank the Kool-Aid with Matt Fitzpatrick. I had heard rumors, or not so much rumors, but accounts of him shooting course records leading into this. I thought it was a good play. Obviously, it was not. And I should probably, I know better. I should not follow that kind of stuff. And in the 6K range, HV3 finished 11th. He had a birdie putt on the last hole to get inside the top 10, which would have been great. That would have definitely, I would have had at least 1 guy in each price range inside the top 10, which would have been awesome. And I did build lineups around these golfers, so that's why some of my lineups did well. Obviously, I didn't win a ton of money, but it went pretty well, so it was good. So my DFS picks that I do on Wednesday nights, that's where these golfers come from. Obviously, I talk about these throughout the preview and the strategy videos. It worked out pretty well. So let's move on, and I do want to go to the optimal lineup versus the GPP winning lineup. I'm actually going to hide these alternate events. I don't, actually put it this way. Pause it if you want to see what are in these columns, but I'm going to go ahead and just hide them again. That way we can see a little bit more over here. And I'm also going to hide the cut made percentage. So again, if you want to look at that stuff, pause the video. But now you can see optimal lineup. You can see $1. This is actually the $5 GPP. $5 GPP winning lineup. And the realistic optimal, which we'll talk about. So the $5 GPP winning lineup used $50,000 of the salary. And it consisted of Tony Finau, Cameron Smith, Jon Rahm, Erik van Rooyen, Sung J M, 16th place, and Sebastian Munoz, 21st place. It scored 676 points on the button. Your optimal lineup are the golfers here with the little black tick marks. It consisted of 11K Jon Rahm, 2 8K golfers in Finau and Smith, and then 3 6K golfers in Tom Hoge, Alex Noren, and Erik van Rooyen. That used $47,800 of the salary, and it was 719.5 points. So it was 40 points over the optimal lineup. I don't like leaving a ton of money on the table. This opens up a lot of lineups you can create. If you aren't aware of that, your permutations go up the more money you leave on the table. And that just means the amount of combinations of lineups you can create increases, which I don't want. We want to narrow the amount of lineups you can create. So we want to get closer to 50,000. My rule is north of 49. So I usually do greater than or equal to 49 and above when it comes to any of my optimizer building or using the optimizer to build lineups. So what is the best lineup 49,000 and above? It consists of those same three golfers at the top, Finau, Smith, Rahm, but now we include 9,800 Justin Thomas, and then your two flat 6K golfers in Tom Hoge and Hudson Swafford. That equals 50,000 on the button, and you just scored 2 points less than the optimal lineup. So you just scored 717.5. Optimal scored 719.5. Now, the sweet spot rules are you have to have all 6 of your golfers inside the top 10. I guess what we can do is just look at that quickly. I know we're going to want these 3 golfers for sure. We probably can't get to Justin Thomas. Obviously, you need 2 6K golfers. So I would say probably Kevin Na and Corey Connors. And then probably Tom Hoge. That equals 50,000 on the button. There we go. So let's see what this equals out to be. 698. So it still beats the GPP winning lineup. It's not super close to the realistic lineup. Yeah. I think it's difficult to get there. I mean, I would love to put Justin Thomas in a lineup. I just don't think we can get... there's no way doing it that way. This has to be 6,000. There's no way around it. I guess this is 49.3. Let's see what this equals. 705. This is way better. Okay, so I mean, you would add 2 8s, an 11, 2 6s, and a 7. That's reasonable. The 2 6s kind of hard to get to. I don't know. That's not extremely realistic to me. It is. Don't get me wrong. It's very interesting because usually your 7K golfers are where you want to build your lineups around, and we only have 1 this week. Let's go ahead and talk about Marquee Tee Time pairings. I probably should have done this to go along with all of this, but if you recall, all of our I go and I look at every pairing that there is and try to find where their ranking equals under basically 2/3 of the amount of golfers in the contest or in the tournament. So there's 125, 2/3 of that's 83. So if their cumulative score was under 83, they were in the Marquee Tee Time pairing. Usually what we see is 2 golfers in the optimal lineup, usually within the Marquee Tee Time pairings, and we usually see top 10, top 20s from each group. Like each threesome usually provides that. So let's see if that actually happened this week. The first group, Webb Simpson, Paul Casey, Russell Henley, no. The next group had Cam Smith in it, so there's your optimal lineup golfer. The next group had Xander Schauffele in it. That's a top 20, that's good. Next one did not. Patrick Reed was a withdraw, and they did not replace him because obviously you can't. This is playoffs. So it was just Scheffler and Berger. Neither one of them finished inside the top 10. But we had Patrick Cantlay in the next group, which finished 11th. So there's a top 20 there. We had a realistic optimal lineup golfer with Thomas here. And then we actually had 2 more optimal lineup golfers and another top 10. So we had Finau, Na, and Rahm down here. So let's see, this one actually counts. 2 groups. 2 groups out of 9 did not produce a top 20 golfer. And really, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 9 groups did not produce a top 10 golfer, if I'm counting that correctly. Let's see. 1. So this would be 1. 2, 3, 4. Was there just 8 groups? Yeah, there were 8 groups. My bad. Not 9. So 4 out of 8 groups. So half of them produced a top 10 finisher. And 3 out of the 8 groups obviously provided an optimal lineup golfer. So that was great. When it comes to the Marquee Tee Time pairings, again, I would like to see more, but it's okay. I like anchoring lineups around 2 of the golfers usually found within here. It kind of gives me a better idea where to start my lineups with. So yeah, I like it. Although this week there were a lot of golfers, so I'm not really going to take a huge amount of credit for it, but it works out in our favor. The last thing I really want to talk about, looking at the bucket parent or the bucket system and seeing how the anchor buckets did. If you recall, I took the projections and the max ownership, which is the max exposure that I would own golfers within this bucket. How this reads, if you forgot, I create 100 lineups. Those 100 lineups give me 600 positions. This number is how many positions out of those 600 I would own a golfer, or I would grab a golfer from. It doesn't make sense when I'm saying it out loud, but I will play 158 golfers with the last year bucket one. Let's put it that way. That's a better way to say it. And then my projections here are how many inside the top 10 will this bucket produce. So the very first one, 2.64, last year ones. If we come back here, everything is sorted inside the top 10. And actually, why don't we just clear everything and just grab our top 10 golfers. I'm actually going to include 11, just see how close we got. So here we go. We only have our top 10, top 11. So we are looking for somewhere between, really it's 1 to 3. I usually just look at this as 1. It's 1.5. Out of 600 positions, I can fill all of them at least once. Out of 100 lineups, I can grab at least one golfer from this bucket in all 100 lineups. But I can grab 58 more and, distribute them however much I want. But still, it's going to be 1.5, but a max of 3, because 2.6 rounded up would be 3. So it's really between 1 to 3. We'll see if the projections work. Last year ones. We have 1, 2, 3, boom. There it is, 3. So that one hits, and I am going to go back to highlighting these colors. Let's go ahead and just say this one hit, and we'll give it green. Sure, we'll give it green. We are looking somewhere between really 0 to 2 last year 3s. Last year 3, we have 1, 2, 3. So that bucket hits. We can go ahead and give this one a green color as well. Last year 2s, somewhere between 1 to 3, just like our last year 1s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't include these down here. 1, 2. So either way, still hits, which works. I don't want to count the 11ths, the 11th place guys here. So 1, 3 still doesn't really change our 3s. That still hits because that was 0 to 2, and there were 2. This one was 1 to 3, and we had 2. So this one also hits. Last week, so we skipped no more last year buckets. We go right down to the only last week bucket that we have, which is 1s. We are projecting somewhere between 4 to 7. Did that happen? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. So yeah, 4 to 7, we got 5. So we'll go ahead and hit that one. And yeah, I know the projection says 6.9, which means obviously 7 out of 10. 10. If I did want to, be a little stingy, I'd say I didn't get it, but I have 1, 2, 3 more down here that are in 11th place. It's pretty darn close, and I'm not really going to punish myself or whatever you want to call it from there. So those were our last year and last week buckets. Our course history buckets. Course history 1, we're looking somewhere between 2 to 4. Sorry, I already forgot it. Course history 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. That one hit, but we also have 5 down here with the top 11. So we'll go ahead and mark that one. Course history 2, somewhere between 1 to 3, or 1 to 4, I should say. We'll go 1 to 3. So course history 2s. 1, 2, just 2. We do have 3, 4, 5 when we count 11s, but just 3, which is good, right? 1, 2. I'm sorry, we have 2, but I did say somewhere between 1 to 3. So yeah, that one works. Course history 3, we want somewhere between 1 to 2. Let's see if we get that one. We do. We barely get it with Keith Mitchell. But we can add a little insurance down here with Shane Lowry, so that one works out as well. So yeah, so far we're 100% when it comes to the anchor buckets. Recent form 3s, we're looking somewhere between 1 to 3. Recent form 3s, 1, 2, 3, and 4 for good measures, good luck, whatever you want to call it. So that one hits as well. Recent form 1s, we're looking somewhere between 2 to, we'll give it 5, 2 to 5. So recent form 1s. 1, 2, 3. Only 3. So it does hit. Max ownership's 267. That means I'm not quite getting, you know, automatically 3 if I spread it out as evenly as possible. So yeah, this one works. Let's see, we had what? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Recent form 2s, somewhere between 1 to 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. That one hits as well, but for good measure, there were 6. So that one hits as well. And I don't really look at salaries. There's not a lot of data, not enough data to normalize those stats. But we can kind of look somewhere between 1 to 2. We do have 1. That was John Rahm, so I can go ahead and cross that off. 9Ks, we want somewhere between 0 to 2. 9Ks, we do have 1, so obviously that one hits as well. This one might be the... Okay, so 8K, we already have 2 in the top. I already know your winner was in the 8K range. Cameron Smith was also there. Salary, or the 7Ks, we want somewhere 1 to 3, and we did have 1. 1 7K golfer and Kevin Na. So that was interesting. I thought we probably needed more, but yeah, we're just 1. Strokes gained 1s, somewhere between 2 to 5. We have 3, 4, and that's it. But 5, 6, we can play right there. So that one hits. Usually I don't talk about strokes gain buckets either because, again, not enough stats to normalize this. Strokes gained 2, we want 1 to 2. And we have 1. For strokes gained 3 and 4, basically we want 1 to 2 on each of those. So let's see if we find those as well, and we do. So anchor buckets this week 100% correct, which is awesome. That works out nicely. I think the last thing to do, really, open everything back up and take a look at all of the stats and the top 20 in each of those stats. I'm going to start with grass stats. So let me go ahead and sort this from top to bottom. Now, what you see on the screen, these are your top 20 golfers. The 20th golfer is cut off, but these are your top 20 golfers. We want to see as many optimal lineup golfers there are. Again, that's with the little black tick marks. If you do see green salaries, that means that's the realistic optimal lineup. We want to see at least 4 to make this stat prominent. Now, 2, optimal lineup and GPP golfers, that's not terrible when it comes to bent grass. And then we have 3 realistic optimal lineups within that top 20 of the stat. Pretty good. Now, it's not anchor good, but it's good. It's definitely a stat you want to look at. Top 10 success rate, we have 3 realistic, 3 GPP lineups, and only 2 optimals, which, again, another good stat to go with. Now, the 2021 grass stat, no matter what tournament it is, has always been kind of successful. This week, it's pretty much the same. 2 optimal lineup golfers, 3 realistic lineup golfers, 2 GPPs. And then we have Tony Finau here sitting in what place? He'd be 22nd ranked. So that's pretty good. Always, it kind of furthers my thinking. You want to look at 2021 Bentgrass. I always think you should grab around 3 golfers that are inside the top 20. I think I'm going to do that for next week, and I'll probably do that, going forward for any of the tournaments. So, yeah, the grass stats were a good one to go with. I'm not going to look at last week's stats or recent form stats. I don't know if it's really necessary. Actually, how about this? Go ahead, pause the video. I'm going to look and just see if there's anything crazy. But yeah, pause the video if you want to see what the top golfers in the field for these stats look like. I'm not seeing anything currently that pops out, so not really anything to care about there when it comes to recent form. Season-long stats. Let's look at off the tee. 1 optimal lineup, 1 or 2 GPPs, 1 realistic, not very good. Approach, 2 realistic, and 2 realistic golfers, realistic optimal lineup golfers, 1 GPP, 1 optimal. So approach, not really the one you go with around the green. Now we have 3 realistic optimal lineup golfers, 2 GPP and optimal lineup golfers. So around the green was actually a good stat this week compared to the rest of them, and putting, not so much. How about those trending upwards with DK points? 2 of them. Sebastian Munoz, Eric Van Rooyen. Not terrible. How about scoring average? Let's go the other way. I guess never mind. We want this way. Anything green is good. So, no, I don't care about differential right now. How about those trending upwards with tee to green? Not terrible. Off the tee. Approach. Around the green, putting, nothing. That's why strokes gained stats are hard to go by. Like, it's hard to go with trying to figure out who's going to do well. Driving distance, nothing. Driving accuracy, not really. Good drive percentage. That's also not super good. Green and reg. That doesn't matter. Proximity. Some. Bogey avoidance. It's okay. Birdie or better. There we go. We have 3 realistic optimal lineup golfers, 2 GPPs, and 2 optimal. How about make percentage between 3 to 5 feet? We have 2, 5 to 10, 2, 10 to 15. No, nobody. 1 putt percentage. This is just all around. Not terrible. 3 realistic optimals, and then 3 actual optimal lineup golfers. That's crazy. Okay, that's not a terrible stat. 1 putt between 5 to 10 feet. Not really. 1 putt to 10 to 15 feet. Nothing. And that's it. That's all of your stat categories, the top 20 golfers in each of them, and then their position in this field, what their final position was. So that's going to be it. Kept it under 35 minutes. That's good. I'm not going to spend much time. I'm going to get right into the BMW Championship, so that should be coming out shortly after this one. Be on the lookout. I shouldn't say shortly. That might be an hour long, so give it like 3 hours by the time I post this. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys. So hopefully you guys did well. Let me know in the comment section if you won anything this week. I'm obviously curious to know. And if you tailed and backed any of my picks or buckets, I want to know. That's all I have for you guys, though. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in that preview for the BMW Championship shortly. All right, bye.